Welcome back to ET with GOTB, a stack of Sunday fixtures to run through and another international break on the horizon. Let's get into it. I'm Rachel.
I'm Sophie.
And this is Extra Time with Girls on the Ball. Welcome back to the latest episode. Plenty to run through as always, but before we get going, this is your weekly reminder to make sure you're subscribed wherever you're watching or wherever you're listening to Extra Time with Girls on the Ball, and do make sure you're following us across our social platforms as well. We're at Girls on the Ball on everything. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know what you thought of the games this weekend, who stood out for you, etc. I sound a bit bunged up, don't I? So apologies for that. I'm a little bit croaky. I'm a little bit nasally.
Trying my best to look after her.
Oh yeah, you did bring me up tablets last night. Sorry, I was trying to work out what it was you'd done to look after me. To be fair, I was like, I'm fine.
After you all the time.
I was like, I'm fine, stop
much.
Stressing. Like, I'm grand. It's not that big a deal. There's literally nothing you can do. We don't have sinus tablets. It's fine. But it does mean for all of these recording bits, I sound a bit bunged up. I feel like, do you remember that Friends when Phoebe she was like, I can't remember what the song was she sang, but she was really into her croaky voice. No, means nothing to you. Probably means nothing to you because you're all like Gen Z or something.
I mean, I did watch the whole of Friends. I can't remember that.
Wow, that's bad. You can't remember that. That's how we
Smelly
define
Cat?
our. No, that's the regular song.
Oh, okay.
It's how we define our
Pivot.
generation. Yes, Jesus Christ! Right, let's pivot from this friggin' topic. Some interesting results in the weekend that have perhaps impacted the relegation battle, which may no longer be much of a battle anymore. There might just be one person standing in a field holding a sword on their own. Also interesting to see how teams involved in the Champions League this week will be impacted and how they'd come back, particularly Manchester City. We will delve into that. We'll look at the championship table as well. There's been a little bit of movement there. And so if you're going to give us the player of the week, you're going to shine a spotlight on something, a team, a tactic, a movement, a player, whatever you like. And then later today, you will share your team of the week. So keep an eye on our socials for that. It is relatively early on a Monday.
It's a work in progress at the moment.
We've got a very busy couple of days coming up, and this was like the only time we could get the pod out.
I'm literally not really back home until Sunday.
So she's literally not really back home until Sunday, and then I'm gone Friday until the following Wednesday. So bear with us. It's a relatively skeleton running order, so we will be flying by the seat of our pants, aren't we always? So yeah, forgive us.
We're not always flying by the seat of our pants.
We are, yeah.
No, we're not.
Would you go out of that? We're always flying by.
No, we're not.
Okay. Right, let's crack on with the Barclays WSL. Manchester United 2, Everton 0. Janssen and Clinton with the goals. Brighton 1, Manchester City 2. Rule, Kasparai and Miedema. Crystal Palace 0, Arsenal 4, Beth Mead with a brace, Russo and Swaby with an own goal. Leicester 1, Spurs 1, Ribrink, own goal, and Spence. Liverpool 1, Aston Villa 2, Hobinger, Hansen and Clark with an own goal. Oh my God, guys. Chelsea 2, West Ham 2, Hamano, ABJ and Martinez with a brace. God, it was a weekend of own goals, and I did a really good OG opener a couple of weeks back, and I thought, I'm going to get that into the intro, and I was like, I did that before. Guys, stop scoring on goals.
Last weekend was an own goal territory as well, wasn't it?
Was it?
Because Matthew scored 2 and...
Oh, God, yeah.
Rybrink scored another one.
Oh, God, Rybrink.
Yeah.
Listen, international break, put it behind you. Forget about it. At least Tottenham are scoring. Okay, this means the table looks like this. Chelsea are sitting on top with 48 points. Arsenal and United below on 42 points in second and third respectively, with Manchester City on 7 points behind in fourth. 7 points behind in fourth on 35. They're not on 7 points. Jesus. Maybe Palace would have nothing to worry about if they were. Palace, of course, are cast adrift again on 9 points, with Aston Villa in 11th on 13. I also wanted to touch on mid-table too, because it's become quite exciting for that fifth spot. I mean, it means nothing, right? You don't get anything for coming fifth, but it is that kind of best of the rest spot, if you like.
Currently, no one else seems to want it, though.
Well, Brighton have somehow hung on to it by the skin of their teeth, because they've only won one game in 2025, and somehow they're still in fifth place. But Liverpool are behind in sixth on 21 points, so just 1 point behind Brighton. And both West Ham and Everton are within touching distance on 19 points in seventh and eighth. So that's kind of condensed a bit. It does mean there's a massive gap between fifth and the top of the table. But I just think that's really interesting, because teams that we perhaps wouldn't have really associated with fifth place are suddenly sniffing around for that elusive spot. So one to keep an eye on. Not just about the top and bottom. All right, let's get into it. Normally we do this in the order of the games that we went to, but we're not doing that this week because I didn't write it like that. There's no actual reason behind it.
Do we normally do it in
I don't know.
chronological order? I think you normally do it in chronological order. It's fine. Don't worry.
I don't know.
No stress.
Like I said, mistake number 1. I don't know how I normally write these things. Manchester United 2, Everton 0. Everton started the game really quite well, pressing quite well. It looked like this could be quite a tasty fixture. And then something very rare happened. Courtney Brosnan made a mistake. Now, we've been singing her praises nearly every week. She's the goalkeeper with the most saves. I think the goalkeeper who's faced the most shots. And I feel like if you're going to be a goalkeeper who's facing the most shots, making the most saves, you're going to have a howler somewhere.
Yeah.
And unfortunately she did.
And also, like, your mistakes as a goalkeeper are more amplified than anyone else on the field, because when you make a mistake, inevitably, it more often than not leads to a goal, which is it's just the nature of the job, I think. But it takes nothing away from Courtney. It's just one of those things that happens in a game, and I'm sure we all know what she's like as a keeper, so she'll be fine.
I was listening to this on the way down to Brighton, and I watched it back, and it was a cross coming in. She looked so comfortable, confident, jumping up to catch it, and I don't know who was on comms, but they were giving her a bit of a break, saying, look, it's very sunny on that ground. Maybe the sun just caught her eyes, but went straight through her hands, and Janssen was there to finish. That's her second goal, I think, of the WSL. So I think for United, they rode that Everton pressure well and then capitalised when they needed to. And it did feel like that mistake kind of took the air out of Everton's balloon a little bit. And then coming back in after the break, Manchester United did really well to score early. I think they scored in the 47th minute. So it kind of like gave them that cushion that they needed and to kind of push on in the game. And yeah, it felt like it then kind of put the game out of Everton's reach a little bit.
Yeah, I think there was a change for United, which rarely happens because Millie Turner wasn't around.
Yeah.
So Janssen went into central defence, which we haven't seen her play this season. It just made things shake up a bit. But she got her goal from central defence.
Yeah,
so
but there was also a worry when Jade Riviere went down in the first half. And there was a real concern. From what it just sounded from the comms that she was really struggling and they didn't think she was going to be able to make it back on. And Aoife Mannion then got up to start getting ready. And that would have been another change to their defence. But she carried on until like the 88th minute, was it? Yeah. So she did really well to run off that niggle, which is good because sometimes it can be a bit shaky when you already have a change in their defence. So they managed that quite well, didn't they?
Yeah, and a second goal in 2 weeks for Grace Clinton as well.
Yeah.
Which is good.
One, you couldn't have bloody been further away from the goal. The other one, you couldn't have been closer to the bloody goal. So some very different types of goals for Grace Clinton.
But I think it's really important for her coming into the run into the season. Yes, she is more than likely 90% on that plane to Switzerland. But I think it just continues to embed herself in England's mind that she is, performing well, scoring well. She can play a multitude of positions as well. And I think that's really, really helpful when England come calling. But for United as well, it's important because they haven't always been able to put their chances away. They've created chances, but they haven't been always able to do that. So I think the fact that they've got someone who's pretty clinical with them is quite good. Yeah,
and look, Everton could have been a banana skin. They very much have the capabilities to cause Manchester United trouble. So the fact that they're able to get a 2-0 victory over them and keep notching up them points and keep themselves in that Champions League spot. And the commentators have been saying what we were saying, quietly going about their business. Don't mind us up here in Manchester.
They're now 7 points clear of City, as are Arsenal. So that kind of third place spot looks pretty, at least.
It's almost nailed on.
Pretty much nailed on.
Yeah.
With what, four games to go?
Yeah, unless there's something catastrophic. All right, moving over to Brighton 1, Manchester City 2. I was at this game, and this was going to make for an interesting one, right? Because Manchester City obviously coming off the back of disappointment. Didn't win the League Cup, out of Europe. European spots looking tricky this season. So it was really going to be a interesting mental challenge, I think, for the team, especially with the number of injuries they have. And unfortunately for them, Alexandri had a niggle in the warm-up, so there was a late change to that back line as well. So a lot of things thrown at the team. They also hadn't been back in Manchester since, Wednesday? They came down for the Chelsea game. So another thing to contend with. And I think as well, with Dario Vidicic being, part of that City group setup, if you like, coming up through there, similar styles of play in terms of liking to play out from the back, liking to have some possession. So it was going to make a really interesting game, and for Nick Cushing, a different opposition to prepare for. So yeah, it was a really interesting game. I think Brighton were unlucky not to come out with something. I thought they did well to put City under pressure. It was almost their own lack of clinicalness that let them down, if you like. But I think a really gritty, resilient performance from Manchester City. Some of their kind of the youngsters, I thought, did really well in defence. You had Naomi Lazelle and Gracie Pryor back in central defence, did really well, given they were kind of thrown in at the deep end. And then equally, their kind of more experienced players being the ones that got them over the line eventually. And, for City to be able to rest Viv and Carolyn, and then utilise them when they needed to kind of try and change that game and get them over the line, it worked. It worked well for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a really tough 12 days. Well, now 14, 15 days for City. And I think the most important thing in this occasion was the result. You lose 3 of the 4 games to Chelsea. You're out of Europe. You're pretty much out of the Champions League race for the final spot. And you've lost the League Cup. It's been and then you've got so many injuries. It's been quite a real tough 12 days when you look at it holistically. So they just needed to get over the line in whatever way possible. And when you have players like Viv coming off the bench, you have the ability to do that. I think Brighton, that was their first loss at home all season, so they'll be a bit sad about that. But that's really impressive to get through to March and be unbeaten at home all season, given how inconsistent they've been on the road. And I'd really like to understand the kind of psychology behind that, because they did make crawl into a bit of a fortress. So that's really interesting. I think as you say, on a better day for Brighton, they finished some of those chances.
That's the thing, right? They'll be disappointed, but they'll be happy enough with the performance in terms of how they played against City, the pressure they put them under. Got very nervy at the end for City, and I think they can look at themselves and say, actually, it was almost our reasons, like our misplaced passes or whatever. And bear in mind, Madison Haley came off early on, but I mean, you're bringing on Michelle Adjumang, who had a very good game. Guro Bergsvand got injured. Vicky Losada was out. Some of their key players. I think Bergsvand has played every game nearly.
Yeah, they've got key injuries. And I think also as well, they'll be more happy with that. If they're looking from week to week, the Leicester performance last week was pretty dire in the first half. They got better in the second half, but really nothing to write home about at all. So when they look at improvement and they look at this week's performance and they look at other performances against kind of top 4 sides, so the one against Chelsea where they drew, I think they can take a lot of learnings from that. And we do have to remember it's Dario's first year in the league. He's trying to build himself something, and it doesn't happen overnight, and there will be ups and downs. And you're at this point of the season, you're now thinking about what you can take into next campaign, next season, what you can build on over the summer. So it's trying to bring the positives out of that.
Yeah. For Nick Cushing, he said to me afterwards, the goal in this game was just get the 3 points in however way they did that. And that was the main thing. They managed to do that. So at least, they can put bloody March Madness to bed now on a high, I guess. A lot of players now going off on international break. But it also means, I asked him about this, for those players who are near return or at the latter stages of their recovery, this is a really valuable 2 weeks for Manchester City now to hopefully get some players back after the other side of the international break. So they'll need that if they're going to challenge in the FA Cup and potentially really push for that Champions League spot. So it was a good game. Really enjoyed it. You were at Crystal Palace Arsenal, where Arsenal ran out 4-0 winners. This potentially the result that condemns Palace.
Yeah.
A difficult run-in for them that includes Chelsea and Manchester City. So perhaps not a game they saw as getting points out of, but the more games that go by that they don't get points out of puts more pressure on the games that they do expect to get points out of, right?
Yeah, it was a really tough weekend, and I think they would have been hoping, when they would have gone into that game, there wouldn't have been any expectation on them to do anything really against Arsenal. They would have wanted to defend well, try and trouble them as much as possible, and maybe hit them on the counter, because Arsenal have been, susceptible to that in the past. But really, realistically, I know Leaf was at the Emirates in midweek, and he would have seen, Arsenal, especially in that second half, at the kind of attacking best, and he would have known exactly what awaited them going forward. But I think they would have thought that maybe Liverpool could get something against Aston Villa, and then even if they lost, it doesn't.
Yes.
The situation is the same. Whereas now they look like they're mounting, and they've got Chelsea after the break, which is hard. I think they've got West Ham and Leicester, which are really important games. But you've got to think now that it really is that kind of uphill struggle. And for good portions of the game, they performed okay. They didn't offer all that much going forward, but they defended well. They kept Arsenal at bay. Arsenal went at their fluid best in the beginning. They kind of. I asked Renee about kind of the, how we often talk about, getting over a loss and recovering from a loss and turning that around in a short period of time. But actually recovering from a win and the celebrations of Wednesday night. And that kind of like roller coaster emotions that you go through, and you're on top of the world. She called it the euphoria of going through, to the semi-finals. And then you have to recalibrate, reset, and refocus your brain and get back to work straight away.
What's that phrase? Don't get too high with the highs and don't get too low with the lows.
Yeah, and it can trip people up a lot of the time. You see it a lot of the time. So I think that played a part of it. Also the changes. I did think Jenna Nice-Wonga played really well because obviously McCabe was out with suspension, so she got her first WSL start and didn't do herself any harm. I thought Beth Mead was brilliant coming back in. She offers so much to that team, and she offers so much both in terms of directness of running, but like the defensive side of the game as well, which I think goes understated a lot of the time. She's
also very good 1v1. She's willing to take players on, and she's very good at cutting inside.
And like the instinctiveness of her finishes. And her second goal, a Crot, I interviewed her after the game, and I did ask her if she intended it, and she was like, well, they keep going in, so I can't really keep saying I don't intend them. And I think, she's scored so many of them over the years that we've seen.
Do you remember the first one? Do you remember the first one when we labelled it a Crot?
Yeah.
Against Brazil in the She Believes Cup?
Yeah.
For England?
Yeah. But yeah, no, she scored more than enough of them to kind of, yes, it's a bit of luck, but also down to skill as well. But I think she was brilliant coming in. Chloe Kelly with her third assist in, actually she had a hand in the third goal as well. Yeah,
you'd almost give her that, but not quite. Give her that.
But her third assist in 2 games as well. She's really having an impact on this team. So it's all coming together. They're able to switch things up a bit. Yes, maybe they didn't look as good as they did at times on Wednesday, but that's fully understandable.
Absolutely. Okay, moving on to Leicester 1, Spurs 1. Perhaps not the most exciting game, but I think on one hand, I'm thinking Spurs will be raging that they didn't win it in terms of dominating in the stats, and they'll be annoyed that they weren't able to get 3 points out of it. 23 shots, 11 on target to Leicester's 10 shots and 2 on target, 31 touches in the opposition box. But then the other side of me thinks they were on a 5-game losing run. At least that breaks it. I know it's only a point.
They'll take the point. But I think with those stats, you'd want to come away with the win. That must be so frustrating for Robert, because I know the goalkeeper got 10 saves, and that's really impressive. But I do think that, when you've got 11, 20, you're creating 23 shots, you've got to score more than 1 goal. Yeah. And that I think that probably sums up the problems at the moment for Tottenham, because they don't have someone who is going to put those chances to bed, when they come, because Bethany was out, and they need other people to kind of step up and take that mantle of scoring goals, because it can't just be on England's shoulders.
Robert telling Sky, we've got a point, which is better than the last game. Which, fair. And maybe it allows them to finish the break a little bit on more of a high than they thought it would have been. But I think, Ella Morris got player of the match as well. When you think that, a fullback getting player of the match in a game.
She's been really impressive.
She has, but in a game where they're dominating in the stats going forward, that says a lot in terms of what the forward players were contributing.
I think it also gives Robert maybe a bit of breathing room, because when I saw the score in the first half and I saw that they were behind, I was like, oh no, because you can, if this keeps going that way, you can imagine sometimes what clubs might do in that situation. But they are only 4 points off 5th place. It's quite manageable to actually still get 5th within their situation if they can really close out the season strongly.
He said that in his pre-match press conference. He was kind of saying, one win and suddenly everyone's talking about what a great season we're having. We're up to 5th, and one loss and suddenly you're down floating right near the bottom and it's a failure, So actually that compact middle table is kind of almost, it's so close to being great for a team and also so close to being, but equally, it's not like, yes, finishing 5th might be seen as good, but finishing 5th with so few points is not good.
It's a struggle. And there's no way looking at the season and not going, it was a hell of a struggle. Wherever they finished, whether they finished 9th or whether they finished 5th.
Yeah.
They've had a really, really tricky season. I think maybe what created a bit of a rod for his own back was the success of last season. And everyone is now expecting, that level. And
we never learned, do we?
You come back down to earth a bit. And I think actually, when we talk about West Ham in a bit, I think they've sort of done it the other way, where they've struggled and then now they're starting to build something properly. So we're thinking about it a bit differently.
Yeah. I also think it's shown Tottenham where the problems are. If they don't address those problems in the summer transfer window, then we can talk about having problems. But I think you don't realise what you're missing till it's gone and you're playing without it, i.e. Grace Clinton, for example, and Bethany England.
And Bizet.
And you're kind of saying to yourself, okay, we can't do what we want to do without these players, and that needs to be addressed. If it's not addressed, then it's a problem. So I'm intrigued to see how they get on.
And they've done some pretty good recruitment, but
not for those areas, I think. For those profile players.
Olivia Holt, I think, will be a good number 10, but she comes in January and she needs to adjust to the league and get up to speed. And I think we were saying about it about Rosa Kafaji in Insta Live this week.
Starting the rumour.
No, but not about that, but the fact that it does take players time when they come over from the Damallsvenskan or wherever they come from to adjust to, the Barclays WSL is the most, is it one of the toughest leagues in the world for a reason? It's one of the most, physical, competitive leagues, and it will take players who have been in different settings a bit of time to get up to speed.
They said the same about Neiswanger at Arsenal as well. Anyway, Leicester obviously, got a nosebleed last week, scoring so many bloody goals that they came back to
Miguel
basics.
So frustrated.
And only created 2 chances on target. But look, they got a point. At least it's kind of off the back of a win. At least they're getting a point.
And it gives them more distance.
A cushion, which is what everyone wants. Right. This is probably the most impactful result of the weekend. Liverpool won Aston Villa 2 for Aston Villa, because they've been in such a rut. And, even I've just completely gone out of my head the name of their manager.
Natalia
I can literally see her face on the screen. It's because we're talking about Amandine Mikel. Yeah, she last week was a bit like, I'm worried too. Do you know that kind of way? This is not what I thought I was coming into. So she'd spoken about players, wanting her players to be brave, which I got. And I think maybe starting to realise that you can't just try and play your style of football now. Now it's about, yes, there's an element of bravery, and I think we saw that in the Villa performance, but it's about just getting the bloody win, grinding it out, and they did that. A much needed win. It was
as well.
Yeah, I was going to say it was a fairly even affair stats wise between the two teams. Villa maybe edging it in the important stats, but then when you look at the actual goal that they did get, injury time, own goal, you're just going to be, you know what, you take it.
Yeah,
that's how they lost to Chelsea.
Kirsty Hansen's was brilliant, and I'm pretty sure that was her first WSL goal of the season. But yeah, I think for Villa, it's, as you say, just about getting it over the line.
Yeah,
that's all you have to do at this stage, and it doesn't matter whether you're playing really, really poorly or you're just defending for your lives, or whatever, however way you set up just to get those 3 points is the most important thing. I think the celebrations on the sideline at the end of the game said it all. Natalia was kind of up in the air, bouncing a bit, celebrating that, because that's the first one. You can go into international break now. You have a week off after international break because you're not in the FA Cup. You've got quite a big time to build, and with this team, and once the players come back from that international break, you've got 10 days ready to start really focusing.
I think as well, the nature of their win and the fact that they were able to come back from going down will help them mentally. To come back from being a goal down, never mind winning the game, but to come back from being a goal down is another kind of little piece of confidence that you can add to the team to say, look, if it happens again, we've done it before. And I think at the last few games, Villa have just been so down and out in every situation that it always seemed to look dire, if you like.
Yeah.
So to just be able to add those little bits that would just boost your confidence a little bit more.
And when you look at their running, they've got Tottenham, West Ham and Brighton and Arsenal. 3 of those games, they will think that they can get something out of them, whether it's a draw or a win.
Yeah.
And I think Crystal Palace's is much harder.
Yes.
If I'm not wrong.
It is. It's we just talked about Chelsea, Man City.
Yeah.
I think West Ham and Leicester, I think.
Yeah. So you've got to say, there was always the feeling that Crystal Palace needed to be a bit clear by this stage of the season if they were going to escape the drop. So Villa will be feeling pretty confident about themselves, right?
Yes. Well, that's the drop. Up at the top, Chelsea faced West Ham, which I think we maybe thought would not be as easy as perhaps we've thought about in previous seasons. I think of the 13 games West Ham and Chelsea have played, West Ham have drawn 1 and lost the other 12.
Yeah.
But equally, Chelsea coming off the back of a lot of games, and West Ham are on a bit of a momentum run, a bit of a high. You look back at the draw against Manchester City, beating Tottenham, of course. Even the Arsenal game, they would have taken a huge amount of positives from it, particularly in front of goal. So this was always going to be an interesting one, more so maybe than other seasons. And in the first 20 minutes or so, I thought, Chelsea are going to absolutely batter them. Like 2 goals relatively quickly, banging on the door, creating lots of chances, loads of possession. And it just felt like there was going to be a tough day at the office for West Ham. But I think one of the things that we're seeing now more from them is that grit. And also, especially when Katrina Gorey went off, I kind of thought, oh, bloody hell, like there's a linchpin gone. There's that tenacious kind of person in midfield that will keep the team knocking on Chelsea's door kind of thing. And actually, really impressed with the way they handled the game, West Ham, and to get that goal back in the first half. That lovely goals as well, like really nice goals from Martinez.
I think it's really interesting when you think they played each other immediately after the winter break, didn't they? And they got
5-0
hammered.
Yeah,
pardon the pun, quite significantly. And I know on that day everything that Chelsea did turned to gold, but there was the gap was there.
Yeah.
Then they played each other in the cup a couple of weeks later, and things were a lot closer. And now they've got them even closer, where they're coming from 2 goals down and tying a game, which is really impressive and really important for their development. I think they've got a real unit starting to build. We talked about it before, but the front 3 of Ueki and Martinez, they are really starting to build those relationships and develop those kind of instincts of playing with each other. And then behind them, you've got the likes of Una Sarin and Katrina Gorey, who literally just, try and hassle and harry and get stuck into absolutely everything. And they're like your little protectors behind them. And I think, it's becoming a sum of their parts rather than individuals. And they're building, and you can see what confidence is doing for them. They're just playing much more freedom than they have done before. And they don't seem to stress out too much when they fall behind.
I think that's something that's changed for them, is their mentality has shifted a bit, and they've recognised that they can get back into games. And for Shakira Martinez, like, even when she's not scoring goals, she just looks like such a pain in the ass striker to defend against. Like, she reminds me a bit of Nikita Paris in the way that she harries and harasses defences. But the goals that she scored, that first one was a ball in from Ueki as Ueki was falling. And the way she took it down on her chest and split the 2 defenders and absolutely booted it home. And the second goal, unbelievable header at that angle. That should not be going in the goal. I don't know how she did it. So really impressive quality of goals as well for West Ham. And like that, like, they're the little things. Yes, drawing against Chelsea will give you confidence, but scoring the goals in the manner that you did gives you confidence. They're not scrappy. They're not mistakes. They're actually really good quality team goals that you've created, which will give you a boost.
Also, like, if you're looking at it from Chelsea's point of view, you kind of just shake it off. They didn't lose a game, so their unbeaten run in the league is intact. And they can, at this point, they can afford to drop points. They need 6 points, I think, from the final 4 games. So they can, you don't want to, you want to win every game, but you can afford, if you're going to slip up, you can slip up
and
a little bit.
You could understand if it was going to happen, it would probably be this game after a month of madness. They're tired,
Sonia
mentally strained.
Said that after the game, I think, didn't she? Because she was like, Millie Bright, I had to take her off because she was exhausted. She was going to do herself harm. She was going to stay on the pitch.
And you have that balance of how much do you change the team to not kind of mess up your momentum, all of that kind of thing that you have to manage in terms of player loading. So they have a quality squad that, that you can bring on. But
the problem for them was Millie Bright is pretty much the only, Natalie Bjorn and her were the only really fit centre-backs that they have. So Millie Bright had to play all of them. Yes, you could play Lucy in the centre-back occasionally, but you're not going to do that with Natalie Bjorn because Millie Bright is the kind of leader of the two of them and the more experienced player, I guess.
Yeah, and much like Manchester City, it was a new bloody opponent for the first time in about 2 weeks. So another thing to deal with. But yeah, look, not catastrophic. Although I did see a post going, the title race is back on. I was like, it's still 6 points, lads.
No, the title race isn't on. Chelsea are going to win it in the next couple of games, I would imagine. Especially that they've got Crystal Palace next. They're going to get 3 points out of that, and then it's just 3 points from the final 3 games.
Yeah.
But I do want to say, I think it's really interesting how the run-in is looking compared to the start of the season. I think some teams have really picked themselves up. Everton would be 4th, I think, at this stage with the results that they've had. If you're taking the table from Christmas, or from November, we've talked about the run that Arsenal have been on. The fact that they are up where they are, that was their 6th straight league win.
In the last 5 games, they have the best form.
Yeah, and they've scored 7 more goals than any other team in 2025. Actually, probably more than that. That was before yesterday's fixture. So I think it's, teams have really been picking up their momentum and their form in the second part of the season. I think their task now is to try and match Chelsea in the first part of the season.
I think what's interesting as well is when you look back at, should Chelsea win it, how they won it, and you might look at the Man City game and you might look at the Arsenal game. But for me, it's the games like the Villa game, like the Brighton game, like the Everton game, where they weren't necessarily the best team for 90 minutes. And other teams were able to exploit them at times and they still got the win. And for me, that's where Chelsea win titles, is the games where maybe they're not, struggling is maybe the wrong word, but like a game that could easily go either way and they're able to get the win. And for me, that's when they're the games you look back on and go, they were the ones that
Isn't it mad though, that if Arsenal won one of those 2 games, they would be exactly on the same, and done it in the way that so that it was the exact result, but the reverse. It would have been the same amount of wins, losses, and draws.
And goals for and goals against or something, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's very strange.
They would have been dead even at the top of the table. That's how actually close it is.
Yeah. Anyway, there are your games from the week. For you, Sophie, what player stood out this week?
So I'm going to go with Shakira Martinez because I think she's been a revelation since she's came in since January. She signed for West Ham in over the summer, but had to go out on loan to Freiburg in Germany because she needed to get the points to be able to work in England. I think that was the reason. So they sent her out on loan for half the season and she did really, really well there. She scored 5 goals in 11 matches.
Okay.
So she got herself up and running, got herself, properly playing. She was consistently playing. And then getting called back in January, I think, and she just
hit the ground running.
Slotted into the side with ease. She's now scored 5 goals for West Ham. I think she, we're only seeing the start of her as well. We'll see much more of her next year.
Yeah.
But I think, a really savvy recruitment from West Ham in what they're doing with her. And she's really, really technical. She's really pacey. She really has that intensity of her press, which is what West Ham are all about as well, those front 3 pressing. So I think kudos to her, and getting a brace against Chelsea is no mean feat.
No. Okay, shine your spotlight on something this weekend.
So I'm going to go with Beth Mead. I think maybe the first goal, but the second goal as well. I think it was a really special moment. It was her 50th and 51st goals, league goals for Arsenal, but also coming on Mother's Day, we all know what that means for Beth, and pretty emotional. She did an emotional celebration as well. And I think it just goes to show the kind of player that she is, but also just wanted to give her kudos.
Absolutely. Love that. Okay. As I said, we will get Team of the Week up either today or tomorrow. That will be on our socials, so do keep an eye out for that. Right. We're going to run through the results in the Championship this week. Durham 6, Portsmouth 0. Portsmouth, what happened? Okay, you got a couple of wins and suddenly you're all chill about it. No, I'm joking. Absolutely dominant win there for Durham.
Amy Claypole with the hat-trick. She's on loan from Chelsea.
Bristol 3, Sheffield 0, Newcastle 1, London City Lionesses 2, Sunderland 3, Charlton Athletic 4. So it means that London City Lionesses are now top of the table. Now, they did have a game in hand on Birmingham. Birmingham didn't play this week because of the odd number of teams in the league, so it means they're now level on games, but London City Lionesses are ahead of Birmingham City, who are in second on 36 points. Charlton Athletic are on 33 and Durham are on 32. So potentially we're looking at a 2, maybe 3 horse race. And down the bottom, Portsmouth on 9 points in 10th place, with Sheffield in 11th on 6 points, but Portsmouth have a game over, 1 game more than Sheffield. So should Sheffield win that game in hand, it all gets very exciting down the bottom of the table. So there you go.
I think it's between London City and Birmingham, definitely, because Charlton have an extra game on them.
Yeah, and I think Portsmouth and Sheffield, it's between them two.
Yeah,
I think Blackburn,
Sheffield
they've got 2
need
games.
To find a win from somewhere, which is going to be tricky, I think. Even with the game in hand, they just can't seem to get themselves over the line. Blackburn with that winner, the Southampton are through.
Yeah. Okay, we've got the international break coming up. England are playing Belgium twice. They were tricky the last time England played them. Remember that Halloween night away in Belgium and they lost?
Yeah, so we edged past them in the King Power and then had that crazy game
at the King Power.
Yeah, at the King Power in Leuven. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting because they obviously took Spain pretty close in that first game.
Yeah.
And then got beaten on penalty, I think, by Portugal. So, going to be intrigued to see how that goes.
We are doing the England-Belgium game in Bristol. Then I'm going to go to Ireland and I'm going to do Ireland's home game against Greece because they will be playing Greece away first. And then you'll be doing the away leg of Belgium-England. Yep. Tell our viewers where the home nations are playing other than England.
So Wales are playing Denmark and Sweden. Denmark in Cardiff and Sweden in Gothenburg. Scotland are playing the Netherlands and Germany.
Okay.
And Northern Ireland are playing Romania twice.
I wonder what makes them decide to do the 2 teams or to split it and do. I wonder if is it to do it like venues available or
maybe. It's a bit weird because normally this middle one is always like a double header. So I don't know what happened to mess that up. I
just think it's intriguing because, like, does it impact how results happen? Does it have more of an influence playing the same team back to back? And
I think I've always found playing the same team back to back a weird concept.
Yeah, and then you're like, do some teams almost benefit more because they got to play games back to back versus a team who had to play different teams each time? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's an intriguing one.
Yeah,
I think if you're going to do it, it should be the same for every team.
Yeah.
If you're playing back to back, every team should play. I don't know, an intriguing one. But yes, we will do a live on Saturday. Where are we going to be? St. George's Park.
Yes, we're going to watch the under-19s. Under-19s are in action this week because they're trying to qualify for the Euros.
So we'll try and do a live? I don't know. Maybe we'll do a live on Sunday.
Yeah, you'll be in Ireland. I'll be.
Yeah, we might do a live on Sunday. I'll bring the dags, and then we'll do a pod on Monday, and it will be from 2 different places again. So that'll be interesting. We can look at how we're getting on.
Although we might leave it until after international break,
or we could do another one.
Or we could do 2.
Because we did an extra pod on Friday night, and I thought we put it out too late. Bloody hell, you guys loved it. So maybe we do another one. But yes, appreciate you all jumping in on that. Views, comments, engagement was great. Some good chats in the comments as well about the Champions League and a little bit about the Sevens as well. So love that. So maybe we'll do 2 if you're feeling greedy, but we will definitely do something next week around the international break, but we'll be from different countries. Otherwise, that's it from us. Enjoy whatever football you're going to be watching or getting up to. Have a lovely week, and we will chat to you very soon.